If you run a business, however big or small, and sometimes wonder whether you're doing things the hard way or the right way, then you are in the right place. We are two business owners who choose to sit around the same table, share mistakes, challenge each other, and keep learning. We are two ordinary blokes in business, and this is our journey to $1 million. Hello, John. How are you?
Good morning, Martin. Yes, I'm fine and dandy this morning. I think I used that one the last time, but yeah, I'm still fine and dandy.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm a little jaded as I woke in the night and didn't get back to sleep. So, but I will try and pepper myself up for this this show. So how
For the listener on that one, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I often feel that I don't sleep well, but actually, I probably get my 7 hours in, and certainly during the summer when the lights come in through the window a bit more, I'm definitely awake earlier. But I often then associate that with not sleeping well. But is that just our natural sort of body rhythms, if you're in touch with all that sort of stuff? Is that, or are you actually waking up worried?
Wow, this took a turn quite quickly, didn't it?
Or we could discuss it another week if you wish to.
No, I don't think I'm worried about a particular thing. I think it's probably just the amount on your plate sometimes. I don't know. I don't know the answer to it, John. Sometimes I sleep really well. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah. No, that's honest, and that's what it's about, isn't it? So.
Yeah, but the one thing I do find difficult is once I do wake, my mind then usually turns to work, and then it's then whirring over some of the issues of the day, and that prevents me from going back to sleep. But I think I often write stuff down or put it on my phone in the middle of the night just so that it gets out of my head, and then I can at least attempt to rest after. So there you go. You know,
Okay.
You know the intimate parts of my sleep patterns now.
Yeah, well, no phones, no technology upstairs in our house, so I don't know. I am unable to write it down.
Is that because you haven't got Wi-Fi up there, or?
Well, we are up north, you know. It did make a big difference when we had electricity
and hot running water.
That's posh, isn't it?
Right,
Tough
so
up north, you know.
you had a holiday recently, John. How was your holiday?
I did. I had a lovely break. It was, yes, it was for the listener. It sounds very posh, but I remember a lifelong dream of mine on holiday in my nan's static caravan in North Wales was looking at the boats in the harbour thinking, I wished I could sail. One day I'm going to sail a yacht. And I've actually achieved that. I've got my day skipper licence, and for the last 2 or 3 years, we've actually had a few days away, either as a family holiday or as a bit of a boys' holiday, sailing a yacht. So we were sailing a yacht around the Croatian islands, which was the playground of the rich, I sort of realised. But no, very beautiful, lovely boat. And I went with Kate, my wife, so she decided to give it another whirl, and we called it the comfort sail, so the boat was to stay upright. And
that's first rule of sailing.
First rule of sailing, keep the boat upright. To which we told her it actually goes faster when it's upright, but we still continued with that sort of with that theme. And a friend of mine and Kate's cousin, who wanted to get some more sort of hours under the on the clock, came with us. So we had a really good time actually, and we went on a flotilla. So it wasn't us deciding on where we was going to go, although we did do that. We had a number of sort of lunch stops in some Croatian sort of small ports like Stormoska and I've forgotten the other one, begins with a P. But they were lovely. So that was a lovely thing to do, to drive and moor your yacht on the town quay and go and have lunch and look out at life and reflect. So that was brilliant. But of an evening, we met up with 5 other boats. There was 5 boats on this flotilla. And so we got a social scene as well as our own sort of sailing scheme. And I'm pleased to say I was very surprised, actually, but we came second on the least number of engine hours, which means we actually did quite a bit of sailing. How's that? It's not often I win something, or nearly win something.
That's very good, Judith Chalmers. Right, now, and how does this relate to Two Blokes in Business and our journey to $1 million?
Quite significantly, in my opinion, because
I'm glad.
And for the listener, we started off that one of my objectives was
who's now booking their holiday to Croatia based on the review given by John. Right, okay, yeah.
Because it's all about, is it 1 million minutes of sort of extra time? So it's all about time, and it's about
time away from the business.
Taken away from the business. And actually, I did still take my computer on holiday. I did still do the sort of a couple of things in the morning, which I sent in. But by 7 o'clock in the morning, I'd done my stuff, and I was able to carry on with the day. So that was good. How does it relate to the business in other ways? It's great to come home, not get involved in. I wasn't sent anything from the office in terms of can you look at this? Can you blah blah blah. So it's all starting to, or all continuing to happen back at base. And on Monday morning, the guys had smiley faces. There was a great positive atmosphere.
That's because
we were busy.
That's because you'd been away for a week.
It probably was. It probably was.
That's really good, John. So the fact is that and I'm sure there were issues that arose, because they always are, aren't there? Those were dealt with by your team without the need to contact you, which means that you've delegated correctly and given responsibility where responsibility is due, and that was what you wanted to happen. So fantastic.
Well, it's us achieving our objectives, isn't it? And actually, we're now into sort of, I suppose, holiday season of everybody, and we know that it can carry on along the same sort of lines. And actually, the peak areas of pressure we've been addressing, and we've got a plan for that in terms of hires and roles. So it's all coming together, isn't it?
Fantastic stuff. So had you planned before you went away what people would do, or had they were just going to continue? You'd been organising their roles, and they were just going to continue doing that, and basically you were just going to take yourself out of the situation. That's
a good question, Martin. Did you think of that one yourself? For the listener, Martin is chuckling away without the volume. That is a good question, actually, and I think the answer is no. They just carried on with what we do normally. The brief that I left is, I think we've talked about a scaling, and we've talked about single points of failure, haven't we? Talked about that on the podcast
endlessly.
And so one of the single points of failure that I have identified in our business, it's only myself and Kate that can log on to the bank. So basically, Kate was on the boat with me, so she wasn't going to get up early and do the banking. So that was one of my jobs, and that's what I said is I would do the banking. I would send that information in, and I would have a quick look at sort of estimates, which I sort of do on different days when Mel's not in. So that was all that I did, really. So that's exactly the plan. Everything else was dealt with by people in their normal roles.
It raises a question for me, is when you hand that financial responsibility over and who you hand it over to, because that's a critical part of the business, and you're not just opening yourself up in terms of trust, but you're also potentially that's the thing that could bring all the cards down, isn't it? If you let that over to someone else, and someone else unwittingly, not necessarily vindictively, but someone maybe didn't do what you do, and have that knowledge of running the finances. It's almost like it's the last key to hand over, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say they're running the finances. I think actually what helps with that now is if you'd have asked me about that 6 months ago, I think I would feel like that. I think the fact is that as you identify these things, and as you realize, you have to delegate them more. And actually, I think what I'm becoming quite good at is actually spotting further points of failure down the line, because you've moved stuff on from you. I'm actually starting to look at it in terms of what else can fail with who you've moved it on to. And I've had some really good, interesting conversations with people about how we cover those things going forward in terms of sharing that responsibility. But yeah, finance is a big one. But I think up until 6 months ago, and we did a little bit of pot sharing, but now we're doing a lot more pot sharing. I think that probably helps in terms of what you do give away, because if there's a lot of money in one pot and people think you're creaming it in, actually seeing the VAT pot, and it's got that much money in because that's what you own, I think actually probably will help them understand a bit more about the ins and the outs of the cash flow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I also think that unless you get to doing that sort of stage, then that's that. And probably, I think for us, finances wise, I mean, I still do the zero. That's something I'm looking at sort of delegating out to in our next sort of phase. But do I delegate out to a staff member, or do I delegate it out externally, because that then becomes a checking point, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I haven't got the answer because I've got.
I thought you had.
No,
I thought you would just give.
I've got the same quandary myself. So, I've got some ideas, but I haven't kind of formulated those properly. But I want to pick up on something that you just said, and it's a phrase that you use quite regularly. I think I was talking about the fact that you mentioned quite a lot, John, that you are looking for points of failure in the business. And while that's, I think, is a really good thing, because you're seeking out those parts of the business that aren't up to scratch and then making changes to bring them up to scratch. I just wondered if you'd ever turn that on its head and looked for points of success in your business, and seen where there may be skills that some of your team members have that aren't maybe being fully utilized, or if there's opportunities within the business that you think that you could take advantage of.
Well, the simple answer to your question, Martin, is no.
Right.
But
Okay.
that's a really, really good idea, and I'm going to think about that, because I do think that's a good idea to actually get it into your psyche to think about it as a single point of success, as a management lever that you pull. Just to qualify what I mean by a single point of failure, by that I mean, the only people that could log on to the bank is me and Kate. Which meant that if I was run over by a bus and Kate had forgotten the login details, nobody else could log in. So actually, as part of our business review and who does what, it's a case of actually making sure that somebody else is trained up to do that. And say another area that we've looked at that could become a bit of a not a hazard, but there's myself that knows how to sort of reschedule calls on the sort of the CRM system. Dave does the most of it, but actually we're talking about training up the techs to actually sort of be able to do that. So it's not just down to Dave that can do it. Historically, crew sheets were generated by me, but now I've trained up other people how to do that. And I've written a process policy, or an operating procedure, not a policy, an operating procedure to actually make that visual for people to be able to do. So that's what I mean by a single point of failure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I was just thinking, like, that all I was saying is just spin it on its head, and that's an opportunity for someone to take that skill, or use their skill to take that what could be a problem and turn it into something beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good idea. And a question I was thinking of for our listener is, we were talking about, let's say, the banking. How do other people get on with helping us get over that hurdle that's done it? What is the secret sauce that we need to understand from people that's handed that over, regardless of turnover of business? What are their experiences they can help us with? And maybe they could send a question in, or a comment in to questions@twoblokes.com. Or is it .co.uk? It's early in the morning,
it's
so
it's .co.uk. But I'm glad you're with it, John. So I think, I'll give you my take on it. I think it's our mindset and our ability to let go, because I don't think there's anything. I mean, businesses do it all over the world, right? So what's different about us? It's only us. It's the way we look at it and the way we perceive it. So we've just got to get our heads around it. Work some systems that eradicate potential issues, and then action it.
Yeah. But it's always nice to hear from the listener, isn't it?
How are you, John Boone? Dear, right. Okay. So that's good. So you went away, you had a nice break, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do, right? It's not that this is our journey to 1 million is not just about getting that kind of turnover. It's about freeing ourselves, freeing our time, and you've managed to do that, albeit it's a week, but it's improvement, because you've managed to do that. Your revenue is still come, the cogs are still turning, the output is still there, everything moved. It's so that's great. Well done.
Yep. Thank you. Roll on the next one now.
Okay, so what are we talking about now then, John? Brilliant. Right. So part
Well, what have we talked about? We talked about sleep, and how we sleep. We talked a bit about.
We talked about Croatia for quite a while.
Croatia,
and what you had to eat.
We haven't talked about that.
I was going to say. I mean, we mentioned mentors in a previous podcast, and I think they're just one of many professionals that support small business. So you have your accountants, possibly solicitors, HR, facilities. Where do you spend your money on support personnel and systems, John? You've got an accountant, right?
We've got an accountant, yeah.
And so, and is your accountant proactive, or are they reactive? Do they just do the end of year accounts? Do they do their PAYE, or what's the?
I think our accountant is becoming more proactive and very supportive, but I think it depends on what you want to achieve. I think a lot of it. I think my journey. I don't like change, so I've never changed our accountant. And they've got to know us, and we've got to know them. I think the making tax digital and going on to things like Zero was good for us. We have journeyed into a management sort of mentor sort of person, and we're still on that journey now, and I think so that's going to be a big one. Accountancy in that one. We don't subscribe to anything like Bright HR. Other companies are available. I think that we do have. That's because we've had an external person that's done it, and we haven't really had that many issues. We are a big member.
So you've got someone that helps you with your HR, sort of an individual that you call on. And,
yes, right. And they do that as a local sort of HR sort of person. So I was on the the email communicating with them sort of pre-going away because of something that we got going on in terms of a hire and the new employment sort of law and legislation and stuff like that. So they reviewed some stuff for me that I thought was right to sort of review. So that's where we are, and I am actually looking at a bookkeeper that can help me, because that's part of taking the role off me without burdening somebody else with it. So I think as we grow, certainly, you talked about you had a financial sort of consultant that came in for a while. Was it great? Yes. Have you continued with it? I think the answer was probably not, wasn't it? But actually it taught you loads of stuff, and it probably gave you lots of tools that you still, reflect on and put in the business each week.
Yeah, I mean, I like we do have a bookkeeper, so that, and I think she's fantastic. So always on top of stuff. So that really takes a weight off of us. Breathe HR is a system that we use for all our HR stuff. But in terms of advice and when it comes to HR, we've got both the helplines from the local chamber and also the FSB. So ultimately what we have done is then, as we've had some issues recently, is we've actually signed up to them. So they're now going to come in, go through all our contracts, all our policies, and then just make sure that they're up to standard for us, and we just pay a monthly fee for that. And that we may need to renew that, we may not, but that's in part. And then also, I had reason to use an HR lawyer a few years back, and that's always handy if you want really sharp, crystal clear, quick advice that cuts to the nub. Then he's fantastic, but he's very expensive. So, that's another one we've got kind of in our armory, as it were. So, but I'm trying to build those people around you, because it's the same as, mixing with the people in business and your networking that we've talked about so much. Having those support networks outside of you really helps as well, especially when you're trying to increase your knowledge.
And I would say in there, just to respond to that for the listener, the FSB, I think, is amazing value for money, and we could probably exploit some more out of a lot more out of that, really. So I think the FSB is definitely something to look at, and yes, an accountant. I think a lot of accountants these days. I mean, I had a situation a few years ago, and I spoke to my accountant. That's not really for us, John. You really need to speak to a specialist sort of accountant about that. And they all have their specialist fields, and they'll all have a different take on stuff. And I think actually, as you just alluded to again, picking up on your thing there, networking and surrounding yourself with people that have experienced that or have got those skills actually opens up a completely different world of opportunities.
Yeah, I think sometimes that can be, thinking back, that can be quite daunting, because you can't, the business you're in, that inside out, because that's what you've built. But those other areas where you look to people for advice, you sometimes, in the past, have felt maybe I'm a little out of my depth because, my knowledge isn't there. But actually, that's perfectly normal, and you just got to speak to these people. They're fantastic at what they do, and a great help to creating what you want to make of your business.
Yeah, and of course we've forgotten, Martin. Although it's we're aiming the podcast at any business, we are both members of the Lawn Care Association. So trade associations are going to be an invaluable source of information and
experience.
Yeah. So let's not forget that. And listener, I hope you've got the date in July noted in your diary for the summer festival. That's a great learning and networking opportunity.
For all those dry cleaners and plumbers out there, you're going to find that very useful.
They're going to love it. They're absolutely going to love looking at those 20,000 acres of
grass.
Manicured turf.
It's a good job the principles still apply to any business, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so what does this week hold in store for you?
Well, I suppose because I've had that time off, I'm on a little bit of a catch up on a couple of jobs that have been the jobs that you say you've got to get done, like I forget what you called them, Martin, because I never got a chance to read all of my books on holiday, so please don't give me any more books to read.
Too busy eating at the mooring by the sounds.
At the mooring it was as well. So the week for me we had a busy day Monday. I got one of my must-do jobs done yesterday, and the guys said thank you very much for that. So I've got a few bitty ones to do today, and I'm going to be working through those. And yeah, then it's onwards. This is Positive John. It's onwards to our next phase of investing for growth, and what the business is looking like, and everything else. We're just starting our we're still into our mechanical sort of campaign. We've had some rain. We're still dealing with sort of quotes where the rain has meant we're going to sort of forge ahead with that, and we're keeping on track with what we want to keep on track with, really. I'm trying not to start anything too new until I've got some of these other little bits and bobs out the way, because it is nice to finish something. I know you class yourself as a great starter, and you don't always credit yourself with being a great finisher. But I'm sure you're being overly self-critical there.
The only time I was a great finisher was when I was playing football as a kid.
Yeah. Was you the striker and the leading goal scorer?
Is it that obvious?
I'll have a look on Google to see if I can see you. So,
I think that was something we picked up on. The tasks that we do. I mean, I'm at the stage now where I definitely have a reduced workload and I'm less reactive. So there's less than 12 months ago, there would be lots of things coming into my desk and I having to deal with them and knowing that I had to do this, that, and get things all sorted. Now I'm not so reactive. I've mentioned that I have time to think, and I have that in itself is quite a different feeling and a different mindset. There's part of me has guilt that I'm not doing as much and other people are. And part of me is I now have to motivate myself to push the business and do the things that don't necessarily have to be done. It's not essential they were done. Whereas 12 months ago, it was essential that I got those done because that was all part of the plan. And it's a very different feeling. And it's coming into it feels definitely a bit more like leadership in terms of taking your time, being considered, making sure you're working on the things that are going to have the biggest impact on the business and the people. It's a tricky one to get you. For me, it's even talking about it now, it's nice because it's like it's realizing that that's what's going on, and because I realize it, I can then process it and hopefully make the most of it. But it's yeah, I thought I'd put that out there for you, John.
Well, no, and I'm glad you did, Martin, because I think that is really, really timely. And I think it's all part of this journey to 1 million, and it's a part of a journey that what you need to do, you need to come on a sailing holiday, because
I couldn't think of anything worse
than being stuck on a floating caravan with John Draper,
not being able to get away from you.
Well, when the engine's switched off and you're just sailing along at 6 miles an hour and being excited about going 6 miles an hour, and the fishing line's out behind the boat and you're panicking that if you actually catch a fish, what you're going to do, and you see the dolphin swim past and you're actually having a chat about exactly this headspace. It's a real soul finder, because we were talking about this literally on the boat, because Alison's got a very high powered sort of job. Ian is retired, although he still does a couple of days just doing what he wants to do, and that keeps his headspace sort of clear. And we were talking about what is actually a habit and actually what we should be focusing on. And it wasn't in relation to this subject here that we're talking about, but it's all about our mental mind space, really. It actually came out we were talking about, well, yeah, just this sort of stuff and what we manifest about and what we're sort of hoping for. And one of the books you shared with me to read, which I have read, it was talking about the visionary. Our role is to be a visionary. Our role is changing from being the person that does the doing into the person that has the vision, and we've got a team around us that help to do that doing, and that actually takes time to feel the difference and the time to train your own mind. And what was identified on our little health cruise was actually, how many of these things that you talk about, John, are habit that you just do, and actually how many things are things that you need to do or somebody else could do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd go on from that. I had a fantastic conversation with a friend of mine who runs another large business. I won't name it, but I think it's about 150 million turnover, and he's the COO. So he's like, well, CEO. He's the main man. And I love talking to him because of the way he thinks and the way he approaches things and the way he brings his senior leadership with him on what he's trying to do. So he's thinking very strategically about the business and the people. And he was saying about, scaling a business. They have sort of some of the downsides to scaling business at that size are that the nicey, happy, feely people won't get the results that big business require. So you have to have someone that's just very consistent at what they do, and they take a bit of the empathy and emotion out of it, which is sad in my view. But we're talking about big business here. But it was just the way this guy thinks and the way he frames things, and it's all drawn to the profit and loss and the balance sheet and the EBITDA, and it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, and I think for us and for the businesses out there that are going through that scaling thing, this is a change. And certainly since we've been doing this podcast, I have certainly felt the change. And I think I've described it on the podcast a few episodes ago, where, we were going great guns. One of the guys resigned during the recruitment process. Me and Kate got back involved in doing the business, not to let our customers down. And those customers are both internal and external. I think sometimes we forget about that, that, our customers aren't just the names on the database list. They're actually, we have internal customers and external customers. And we, you and I commonly call those our family. The internal ones are like our family. And you, so what you do, you step back in, not, to support the family. But actually I realized that to grow the business, I've got to be able to work on it and not in it. And that means you've got to invest in other people, things like the management sort of consultant or the guide that can help encourage and coach other people that will help us to achieve those objectives. So yeah, I feel I feel what you're trying to say. I haven't got the right answers, I don't think, because there's only you that can sort of draw out those. Other than us, we know that we're not alone, and actually being able to talk about it gives us some great ideas, really. And I think just knowing that you're not alone, and that's probably the importance of networking. Networking's come back up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your friend that does that,
and also the fact that that's what this podcast was designed for originally, isn't it? It's to help those people to not. I wouldn't go as far as to say our advice is of great help, but what it does is it notifies people that we're talking about these things. We're discussing issues of the day, where you can find help, and because there are people. I just, I think about the TV programs like the Hell's Kitchen and stuff like that, and those people, you can clearly see they're stuck in their ways. They're doing the same thing day in, day out because they have to. They're trying to make ends meet. They can't see the wood for the trees, and you just think, like, at points in my life, I've been there. I've been in that situation, but it's only when you learn and change and have perspective on those moments that you can actually see, right, okay, doing that time and time again is not going to get the results I desire. So I need to change something. I need to do something differently, whether it's learning, educating myself, changing a system, a process, the way I adopt marketing or whatever. But you have to make a change. And I think, I'm hoping that that's what this does. It just tells people that we're here, we're talking about the same sorts of things. We're, like we say in the intros and the outros, we're ordinary geezers, but we're just, we're discussing these things because it's nice to know that we aren't alone, like you said.
Yeah. And it comes back to you've got to get out, you've got to remove yourself from that situation. I think, as you say, the Hell's Kitchen type sort of thing, those people, the bank loan is being sort of, closed. They're in desperate financial sort of doodah, and they're so close to sort of just going, well, I've got to stay in it because I can't leave it. But actually, I think walking away from it occasionally and just finding something where you've got the headspace to think, actually, you come up with the answers that are the right ones. But it's taking the break to have that think. Like, we both got dogs. We both go and walk the dogs.
Yeah.
And how much time do you go away and just think, or do you make a few phone calls on the walk because you're getting some visual stimulation and fresh air and some clarity and just
and I think,
and actually that creates the opportunity then when you have that time to think, you can process those things through to come back reinvigorated about getting it resolved or sorted or an idea, and they may not be complicated to resolve it. It's just, but for us, we've got to do more of that because that's what's going to help the business grow.
Yeah, and that's kind of, that takes us full circle to what I was saying before. Now I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that because I'm less reactive. But I if I want to grow the business more, then I do have to. I have to make sure that my mindset is in the right place, and I've got my foot to the floor.
Yeah.
Good point to wrap up.
I think so.
Before we waffle anymore, that's what it feels like. John, well, take us out.
I will take us out, Martin. So, thank you, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed today. If you have got any questions, please do send them into Two Blokes, or questions@twoblokes.co.uk. We're not experts. We're two blokes running
quite clear.
A family business. Well, I am, but Martin isn't. But we've had no famous quotes from Martin today, so that's a surprise. But anyway, so we're not experts. We're not preaching. We're not giving any legal advice or anything like that. Just to sort of point that one out there as well.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer alert. We do have a technical problem, but I think Martin got that one sorted out. So there might be a bit of a break in proceedings during this podcast, but we're not experts. We're not preaching. This is John and Martin having our normal Wednesday conversation about really what it's like to run a business. And hopefully you're enjoying that. If you are, please like and share it with friends and colleagues. If you've got any questions, please send them in for future episodes, and we'll see you next time.